Joe Biden.
Thank you. As Adlai Stevens said, flattery's fine as long as you don't inhale. Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, you're both to me. Henry, my good friend, and former DNC Treasurer Andrew Tobias. Andy, I saw... Tom, am I allowed to talk about the check that's back there? I'm sitting waiting to be introduced, and I look, and there's one of these game shows, a great big check, and it says written to Andy Tobias for $18 for 18 years. So, Andy, I think you earned every penny of it. And Randy, you're here tonight, but Sean Patrick Maloney, God love him, as my mother would say, is doing a great job and sending a powerful, powerful message as well. And a woman I have unabashedly been in love with for a long, long time. I've known her a long time. I don't mean to imply we're close friends, but I consider her an incredible person. Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi, you're out there somewhere. All kidding aside, try to imagine the last 25 years and important things with Whoopi not being around. You played such a big part in everything. And Billy Porter, I tell you what, if I could do my job like you do yours, hell, I'd have been president a long time ago. I'd have been. Could have been big. Henry, thank you for that kind introduction. And congratulations to you and Kyle on finally making it official. I was honored to officiate your wedding and bear witness to what the English playwright Christopher Marlowe once said. He said, "Come with me and be my love, and we shall all the pleasures prove." On that afternoon in my living room, not long ago, it was clear that you're well on the way. It's going to be an incredible journey, but to think how long it took. Remember all those who never got to feel the way you felt that day. So many unfulfilled dreams. They're a reminder of how progress is so precious and can never be taken for granted. And I want to make something really very clear tonight. And some of you have become my closest friends over the last 40 years, some of you more recently. But you've heard me say it before, but I want to say it again. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Over the years, many of you have thanked me for stating the obvious on Meet the Press. Some of you credit me with taking a political risk. No. I mean what I'm saying from the bottom of my heart. I give you my word as a Biden. I took no political risk. No, there was no risk. I took no chance. Though I acknowledged that I was doing something special. But folks, I was just answering a straightforward question directly put to me in what I've known my whole life is a proposition that my dad taught me, my family, and that lies at the core of what made me a Democrat and the Democratic Party. And that is that everyone, my dad's expression, Joey, everyone Everyone is entitled to be treated with dignity. Everyone. Everyone. And respect. And so, the speed with which things have changed is not thanks to any one national figure or a celebrity. It's because of people like you. I will not mention them by name, although I've just spoken with several, who are only because they're closer to my age and don't want to give away their age. But the courage it took for so many of you, particularly those who are closer to my age, the incredible courage it took to speak out, to speak up. So many people here tonight that I want to just say thank you to. Again, not just for supporting the Democratic Party, although your generosity is greatly appreciated. I'm here to thank you for living with dignity and authenticity each and every day of your life, for the daily acts of coming out, knowing how some people will respond in a negative way. Harvey Milk, who I got to know, Harvey Milk said, hope will never be silent. With all due respect to Harvey, what he didn't say is that hope springs from courage. Courage. Courage to speak up. Courage to speak out. The courage to take risks. My mom used to say, Joey, the greatest virtue of all is courage. Because without courage, no one would love with abandon. Without courage, no one would love with abandon. And I don't just mean emotional courage. I mean physical courage. Again, many of you are especially closer to my age. You paid a personal, professional price when you came out. You risked your jobs, your livelihoods, and in some cases, and you know I'm telling the truth, your physical well-being. It takes courage. But your tenacity, your integrity, as a consequence of both, you bent that moral arc of this nation towards justice. That's what Pride Month is all about. It's about honoring generations of brave activists, from Stonewall to ACT UP to PFLAG moms to young transgender leaders. You know, we've come this far because you spoke up for who you are and you demanded. You didn't ask, you demanded justice. Justice has long been denied, despite some vicious voices of intolerance who tried to drown you out. The other expression my mom would use, and the Secretary has heard me say this before, she'd say to each one of us, she'd say, listen, bravery resides in every heart, and it will be summoned. Bravery resides in every heart, and it will be summoned. You're not just courageous, you've been brave. You've been summoned. You stood up. From the very first days of your activism to the Equality March earlier this month, you, honest to God, have made this country a better place. You have made it a better place. No, you really have. As a secretary, I can tell you, I travel the world. I've known every major world leader in the last 40 years just because of the nature of my job. You're not only changing the environment here, you're beginning to change the environment around the world. We got a long, long way to go. But discussions that weren't able to be even undertaken in the past in other countries are now underway. World leaders who are still homophobic are reluctant to be so vocal about it. because things are beginning to change. Cultures are beginning to change. And thanks to you, and again, this is not hyperbole, it's literal, thanks to you, my children and my grandchildren are growing up in a world that is more just and open-minded and humane. The generation of the baby boom, think what you did. Think what you did with your activism and courage to change the millennial generation. It is the single most open, single most tolerant, single most embracing generation in the history of the United States. No, it really is. It is. And by the way, well, let me put it this way. You done good, kid. Because one of the reasons, in spite of this terrible period we're going through, I am confident will prevail, is because most change occurs culturally long before it occurs governmentally. The country is way ahead of the political leadership. And so what you did, you not only liberated so many LGBTQ people, you liberated an awful lot of straight folks. No, you did more to liberate straight folks who were never homophobic but lacked the courage to speak up. You gave them permission. You emboldened them to stand up and stand with you. Because of you, so much has changed. Even 5 to 10 years ago, if a group of folks were having a business lunch here in New York City and a gay waitress or waiter, a gay waiter came up, and one of the people at the lunch made fun of him being gay, no one would have said anything. Today, that person would not be invited back to a lunch. Culturally, things are changing. So I think you underestimate the breadth and depth of what you've done with your activism. You freed them up to speak because now they know better and they know they will not be shunned. They should have had the courage to begin with. But you emboldened a lot of people. Progress happens when fair-minded individuals, from political leaders to activists to regular Americans, stand up to hate and prejudice, violence in all forms. But we know that violence and vindictiveness is still present. We just marked the one-year anniversary of the hate that took the lives of 49 people and so many more lives forever changed in the shootings at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. I went down there. I met with every one of those family members. I met with the survivors and the partners of every one of those who died and were injured. And the fact that the community responded, the fact that the nation responded, did not take away their pain, did not lessen their loss, but it made them realize that it can't be turned back, no matter what happens. I remember the pain and the stories shared with me, the incredible strength and dignity of the survivors and their families I met. You know, there's this terrible situation that many of you find yourselves in. When people know you've lost a son or a daughter or a husband, a wife, someone you love, and they know it, they tend to be more open with you because they know you understand the loss. It was amazing, the resilience. It was amazing watching law enforcement officers, introducing me to the families and embracing them, embracing the partner left behind. I don't think you would have seen that even 5 years ago. But the cops were liberated as well to be able to say, this is somebody I care about. In the face of such hate, silence and inaction are not permissible. They're inexcusable. Any person of conscience, regardless of their religious or partisan beliefs, should be able to agree that violence against any person in any form is intolerable. No one no one should be killed, tortured, assaulted, harassed because of who they are. And to those who try to excuse this kind of discrimination in the name of culture, I say prejudice is prejudice is prejudice, inhumanity is inhumanity. It is wrong no matter what. There is no justification. And the change I see, and I think, Tom, you know this, the change I see from when I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee and I'd raise the issue of the barbaric nature of the laws in a country, I would be told I was violating cultural norms, whether it was the State Department or other elected officials would say, that is a different culture. There is no justification in any circumstances to deal with people in an inhumane way. None, none, none. Not religious, not culture, not anything, not history, period. We've got to get by this. It's the measure of our humanity. Using religion or culture to license discrimination, demoralizing LGBTQ individuals to score political points is no more justifiable around the world than it is here. And that's why Barack and I made it clear in our administration when we speak to other countries about aid and their behavior that it mattered how they treated the community. And I'm convinced, I really mean this. I know I'm always referred to as, when I was there, as the White House optimist, as if I'm the new guy. I've been there longer than all of them. I know the history, the journey of this country. Human nature, behavior that is reprehensible, that's been acceptable, can be changed by changing the culture. And so our party, our administration stood on the right side of history. We understood it wasn't enough just for all of you to take these risks. We're required to do our part to stand up, change the law, the policies that for too long have denied people of equality, stripped them of their dignity, put them in harm's way. And think about the progress we've made today. We have so much more to do, but it's sometimes important to look back, to give hope, to remember how far things have moved as rapidly as they have moved, even though they have much more to go. We abolished Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We laid the groundwork for the military that fully includes everyone, including transgender troops, women in combat. Together, because of you, we passed hate crimes bill, bearing Matthew Shepard's name. We lifted the HIV travel ban. We authorized Violence Against Women Act, one of the greatest accomplishments of my professional life. We passed the Affordable Care Act. And both laws are fundamental to protecting the safety and dignity of every lesbian, gay, transgender American, period. And we stood up for equality around the world because, as I said, LGBTQ rights are basically simply distilled to one thing. They're human rights. They're basic human rights. We work to prevent bullying in schools and so much more to do. My wife, God love her, is so passionate about this. We fought with some successes and more failure to deal with discrimination in the workplace, intolerance in our communities. And together, we struck down the Defense of Marriage Act, and we lit the White House in rainbow lights. Without in any way diminishing the need for us to redouble our efforts, the pace of this progress has been nothing short of remarkable. But despite the progress we've made over the last 8 years, we have so much further to go. Today, we still don't have a federal law that explicitly protects the LGBT community people from being fired or evicted or denied service in a restaurant. It's barbaric to think that in America today, you can be married on Sunday and fired on Monday. 28 states can still fire you for being gay. 30 states if you're transgender. No explanation required. At the same time, transgender Americans are under attack in state legislatures from North Carolina to Texas. Some of these bills are targeted at young people, kids who are just trying to attend school in peace and safety. And too many of our young people are rejected by their families, subjected to the vile practice of conversion therapy, or even kicked out of their homes. Far too many. 40% end up homeless on the streets. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have a generation of elders who helped blaze the path to a more perfect union, but they need better support than they have now. We need to come together as a community to look to them and help them. Around the world, LGBTQ individuals face terror and torture from Syria to Iraq to Uganda to Tanzania. And we cannot remain silent. It is our business. It is our business. Countries such as Russia, where appalling reports recently surfaced that authorities in Chechnya were imprisoning and torturing men believed to be gay or bisexual, continue to be openly hostile to equality. Folks, there's a lot of people around the world hurting very badly. Political leaders have used anti-American sentiment to fuel the LGBTQ sentiment and hate in their countries. They've combined the two in Russia. In many parts of the world, the horrific assault of corrective rape is used to try to turn women straight and condoned by the society. This is barbaric almost as genital mutilation. There's so much more to do. And as Democrats, notwithstanding who's in the White House, we can't stop now. We can't look and say, because of the team that's there now, there's not much we can do. That's not true. I was asked at a meeting I had earlier today, I was asked, what can we do to change the atmosphere in Washington? Change it on Main Street. Continue to change it on Main Street. That's the only way to change it. The first thing we should do, even though he won't respond, is hold President Trump accountable for his pledge to be your friend. Demonstrate that public opinion and history are on our side. Just because you don't have Barack and me in the White House doesn't mean it's time to give up, keep quiet, stay in the sidelines. If you excuse me for talking about our party for a second, I think it's time we remember what we stand for as a party. No, I really mean it. I really mean it. What made you, think about it, become a Democrat in the first place? Those of you who made a conscious choice to be a Democrat, beyond and including the rights of the community. I think there's three things that have driven most of us to become Democrats, who become the core principles of my party. One is, we have believed from the outset that everyone, as I said, is entitled to be treated with dignity. That's why we led in the civil rights movement. That's why we led on Social Security back in the 30s. That's why we led on all of these issues that are designed to do what? One thing: allow people to have their head raised. My dad used to say, you know, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your child in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. That's what we're about, across the board. It traverses human rights, political rights, economic rights. It's about giving people a chance, treating them with dignity. You know, the third thing I've found, the second thing I've found that makes us a Democrat, at least me, and most I know, is as a Democrats, we've always thought big. Tom, I must tell you, the one thing that disturbs me about our party now is so many of us are walking around with our head down. We're acting like, woe is me. We're acting like only way we can act is incrementally. When has America ever thought small? When have we ever thought incrementally? When have we ever been that? Who are we? We have done incredible things. We think big. But today, we say, well, maybe we can't do all that. We'll do part. Damn it. It's time to stand up. It's time to tell people we are the United States of America. We can and will do great things across the board. We're the ones that did the human genome progress, built the Hoover Dam, did all the things. I mean, God almighty, think about every generation of Americans. What have we done? In the middle of the damn Civil War, you had a progressive president who happened to be a Republican, like, God, if we had those Republicans back. Republicans. What'd he do? He's fighting the war, but he built the Transcontinental Railroad in the middle of a war, having not a damn thing to do with the war. Because we're Americans. We think big. We're on the verge, this generation, of so many astounding things that are going to occur in the next 3 to 5 years. You're going to be traveling 22,000 miles an hour subsonically before the decade is out, before the next decade is out. You're going to be able to travel from here to Tokyo in a matter of a half an hour or less. This is real. We're going to cure cancer. It's within our power to do it. We're in a position where we're going to fundamentally change the way in which this whole continent is able to be the energy that's supplied. We're now at the point, folks, where in most places it's cheap a kilowatt to have solar power as it is coal and wind. What are we doing? What are we doing walking around going, oh, I don't know, we can't do this? And the last thing, at least made me a Democrat, have you ever known a significant Democrat leader who wasn't optimistic? I'm not joking. Optimism. Optimism. That's always who we've been. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the people we represent, it's all about hope. It's about giving people hope. the most needed commodity in any society. And so I know you're all not so crazy about what I'm saying now, but damn it, I'm sick of people walking around with their heads down. I'm sick and tired of us acting like woe is me. We are better positioned than any country in the world to own the 21st century. Nobody is a patch on our genes, as the saying goes. Ladies and gentlemen, I remember when I was debating folks from the Heritage Foundation in the late 90s about how Japan was eating our lunch, and I was arguing, no, where's Japan? How many of you thought that when the Eurozone was created and the Euro was put in place, 390 million people, they were going to eat our lunch economically? Raise your hand if you think we want them to grow. And China. I've spent more time with President Xi than any world leader. 25 hours of private dinners with him, traveling over 25,000 miles with him. Ladies and gentlemen, I want China to do well. It's in our interest. But China, ladies and gentlemen, they don't have enough energy. They don't have enough water. They have a $2 trillion project just trying to figure out how to turn the rivers around. 35% of their land is polluted with cadmium. And we're sitting here going, oh, my God, what can we do? Get up! Get up, America, and start to act like who we are. Folks, as you can tell, I'm not very passionate about this. Look, I know it seems like we're hopelessly divided. I know that it seems like we're stuck in a political death match that we can't get out of. And I've been around a long time, since I was a 29-year-old kid as a senator. But I also know the history of the journey of this country. And it's one that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. The fundamental defining feature between good Republicans and good Democrats is we really do believe ordinary people have the capacity to do extraordinary things if we give them a chance. And ladies and gentlemen, when we have, the American people have never let their country down, not once. If we just remember what has always set this nation apart from every other nation in the world on the face of the earth, the next century will be the American century. I'll conclude by saying that I was in Chengdu, a city on the Tibetan plateau that was, I guess, 15 years ago, about 3 million people. It's now 22 million people. I was having a private dinner with Xi Jinping. And he looked at me and he said, "Can you define America for me?" And I said, "Yes, Mr. President, in one word, and I mean it. Possibilities." The single most defining feature of America is we've always believed, whether it's rectifying and reestablishing the rights of every LGBTQ person in America, whether it's building a future of infrastructure that will have the whole world repaired to our door, whether it's making sure we can pay for every single solitary kid to go to college, it's all within our wheelhouse. It's all about possibilities, because there's nothing we are incapable of doing if we set our mind to it. Again, thank you for all you've done to make this country better. May God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You're a hero. There'll never be an award big enough to thank you for your life of public service. I know I saw you $56 for a marriage certificate.